Welcome to the Daily Grind. My name is Kelly Johnson, and this is episode 12, which is crazy. We're getting to the point where I'm almost forgetting the number of episodes I've been recording, so that's a good thing, you know? And it's Daily Grind keeps on going. So, I'd like to introduce our special guest for this episode, Tyler Laursen. He's a fellow coworker and tech rep for Wilson Sporting Goods, tennis pickleball player, and trail off-roading enthusiast, thus a host of his own podcast, The Snail Trail 4x4, lives and works in the Northern California area, and overall great person to have on our show. So welcome, Tyler. Woo!
Woohoo! Thank you for having me, Kelly. This is going to be fun. I'm excited to see how this goes. So I haven't been interviewed on a podcast yet. I've interviewed a few people, but I've never been on the receiving end of an interview. So this will be fun.
Yeah, it's like a reversal role, basically. And so far, most of the guests on my podcast have had a positive experience, so I hope to do the same for you.
Oh, cool. Yeah. No, that's exciting to hear that you're on 12, because I remember sitting down with you at a national sales meeting not too long ago and working out how to the specifics of podcasting and kind of like what are the things you need to be able to do and touch on. So it was really cool to kind of go from there and now see you're all the way to episode 12, which is really cool. So
yeah, that's what I was just gonna say. It's been a while. I would say since the last time I saw you was Austin, Texas. So
yeah, that's true. It was Austin.
I was like basically doing a mini interview, asking questions on podcasting.
Yep. Well, people are hitting us with ping pong balls in the background.
Yeah, getting hit by ping pong balls, taking notes on my phone, and lo and behold, what was that? I think that was March. I want to say. March till August was the first episode that aired for the Daily Grind. So it's been a transformation, and I'm super pumped to get this far. And
that's really cool. Do you know what the magic number for podcasting is that kind of tells you if you're going to continue doing it and the podcast is going to live on and continue in the long term?
I'm not sure about the super long term. I know I've heard that like once you get to episode 10, that's like you're into a groove or like a schedule. Defining long term though, I don't know if it's like if you have to get like 100 episodes or something. But
you're gonna keep going.
Yeah.
It's pretty much between 10 and 16. If you make it to 10, then you're kind of like, okay, we're figuring this out. We got it moving. If you make it to 16, then you're like, I'm still having fun doing this. Let's keep it rolling. So
So I'm in the middle stage, the awkward. I don't know what you want to call that stage, like in between the transition from like middle to high school or the high school to maybe the high school to college.
It's the awkward teen years.
The awkward teen years. Maybe it's the high school to college where I'm like looking for different schools to apply for and writing my essay and getting recommendation letters and getting some references, getting some big names on my podcast to see how it goes. So you're one of them. So you're helping my performance out and getting accepted into some Ivy League.
Nice. Ivy League podcasting.
Ivy League. I don't even know if that's a thing.
That's great.
Yeah. No, I would say you've graduated college in terms of podcasting.
We've gotten pretty far now. So the Snail Trail 4x4, which is an off-roading podcast, mainly centered around Toyota pickups and Toyota vehicles. And what we do is we build Toyota vehicles and then take them off-roading and talk about our experiences and all these different things up in the Northern California Sierras. We just have some amazing off-roading trails here. And so we're on episode, what just aired this week? 34, I think?
Yeah. I was listening a little bit.
Yeah, so 34, 35 and 36 are in the books, just waiting for launch dates. And then before that, we did probably 30 to 40 episodes on another podcast, kind of helping them fill some transition time while they were figuring out stuff to do before we ended up splitting off and kind of doing our own podcast. So, yeah, it's been a lot of fun. And podcasting it's such a weird medium because you go through and your listeners listen to you and get to know the hosts, and they end up kind of building this almost like an intimate relationship with the hosts, but you have no clue who these listeners are, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so they know everything about you, because when you're on a podcast, you just talk and talk and talk, and they end up knowing everything about you. And then they start talking to you, sending you emails, and they're like, hey, blah, 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 blah. They're so great, you know, doing this and that. And then they see you out at events, and they're like, hey, I loved this episode. I loved everything you do. I know this happened and this happened. And I'm like, how do you know these things about my life? And they're like, you talked about it on the podcast. I was like, oh, yes, that makes sense. But it's a very interesting, entertaining medium I have found that keeps me busy. So,
yeah, I like it too. It's a really good experience, and you get to kind of share your story. And yeah, it's interesting, like listeners, or if I do like shout outs to different people on the podcast, like they'll like, oh, Kelly, you mentioned me in episode whatever. I'm like, yeah, I did. But,
yeah, I did.
Yeah,
all right.
Yeah, all right. But I mean, like, it's my daily grind, so like, yeah, that's what's happening in my life. So you're a part of my life.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I've been bragging about in the Chicago office. Yeah, I'm talking to Tyler this week. It's gonna be super fun. You should definitely listen once it becomes live. So yeah.
Oh no! So everybody in Chicago is gonna be listening to this one.
Oh, of course. Maybe not just Chicago. Throughout the U.S. Hopefully, I'm hoping to grow. Hoping to go big.
Nice.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you more about your podcast. The different ideas you have for like episodes, like the themes, like for instance on your episode 33 was like how awesome is rock landing, build planning 101, rock crawlers, like things of that. Like, how do you determine your different themes for like each week?
Yeah, that's a good question. So essentially what we did starting out was we kind of had a format to each episode of, you kind of do these intros, you get updates to the listeners of what's going on behind the scenes, any news updates, anything that's going on that you want listeners to be aware of, any maybe changes to podcast schedules, whatever it is. So you do updates at the front, and then we did kind of a segment about what we called the general banter, which is we just kind of go back and forth, talk about what we've been up to, what we're doing with our rigs, what we're doing with our our daily lives kind of stuff, pick on each other a little bit. And then we would go into the educational part of each episode. And that's called what we called the campfire discussion. So it's something that our goal is to pick a topic that you would want to sit down and talk with your buddies with around a campfire when you're out camping. And it could be anything related to camping, backpacking, hiking, off-roading, of course, different things to do to your vehicles, different ways to engineer things on your vehicles. And then what happened was my co-host and I, Jimmy, we just talked so freaking much that our episodes were going on for like 2 to 2.5 hours. And we were like, that's just too long. That's egregious. So we ended up splitting it up now. And now instead of doing 1 episode a week, we do 2 episodes a week. And the general banter stuff comes out on Thursdays. And then the campfire discussions come out on Mondays now. So the whole goal is that people have roughly a week to think about the campfire discussions before they go out on their next weekend trip. And they can bring it up with their buddies and their friends out while camping and have some interesting discussions about random topics. So we try to make the topics as relatable to off-roading as we can, and mainly Toyota vehicles, but we throw in Jeeps and Fords and Chevys and everything too. Toyotas are just what we own and what we know the best and what we really like for whatever particular reason. Branding 101, right? So it's been interesting. And so we've done topics on mapping software, ham radio, emergency communications when you're out in the woods with no cell reception. We've done different ways to build suspensions on your vehicles, different ways to build and reinforce axles, engines, transmissions, transfer cases, whole drivetrains. So different ways. What's your top favorite trails to go on? What type of off-roading do you like to do? Because you could do rock crawling, you can do sand dunes, you can just kind of do what's called overlanding nowadays, which is really just kind of like glorified car camping. You could even go and do what a lot of people are starting to do, which is get like a big diesel truck and put a camper in the back of it and go quote unquote camping, which I just call parking. But you can do all sorts of different stuff and different types of off-roading. So, we have a lot of granite rocks here in Northern California. We have the Rubicon Trail, which is fantastic and a beautiful trail. And if you don't know what the Rubicon Trail is, it's literally
tell us more.
It's an off-roading trail that Jeep named one of their vehicles after. It's located roughly about an hour and a half, 2 hours from my house.
Nice.
So I'm lucky enough where I can go up on a day trip, and since my day job has me very busy on weekends, I can go up on day trips during the day, the weekdays, and then mornings and afternoons after, I get caught up on emails and everything, go up for an afternoon up to the Rubicon Trail, hang out for the afternoon and come back home. It's fantastic. So
that's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
I assume like where you live, you're within like a driving distance or a short road trip to different trails or where you want to go, basically. I would say going back when you're defining different camping definitions, I would say I'd probably fit in the more glorified, like the more what do you call it, glamored camping?
Glorified car camping.
But it wasn't like, I'd say my last one wasn't really I wouldn't say it was too much of a camping. I did when I did the Chicago Triathlon in August. And I did to practice for. I did a sprint triathlon in Oregon, Illinois, which is about like 2 hours west of Chicago, and there wasn't really. It's a smaller city, and you're out in the burbs, and there wasn't really any hotels. There's like there's a campground that was seriously, I would say, less than 10-minute drive to the race location. So I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna camp in my car. And
nice.
That's what I did. Yeah, that's what I did. So that was like my last one. They're like, Kelly, what the hell are you doing? I'm like, yeah, this is pretty easy. I had my bike. My bike fit into my Prius, but then I took my bike out when I guess camped in quotation marks. I did okay. I should have brought more blankets though. My back was a little sore. Note for next time. I'm gonna have to listen to one of your. I remember one of your podcast episodes. I really liked when you had like the what to pack in your like not camp bag, but your like supply bag or something in your car. I thought that was really cool.
10 off-roading essentials, and part of that is your camping equipment. So air mattresses are amazing for camping. They're a necessity. They're amazing. They're fantastic. So
I need to create like essentials. I need to re-listen to that episode and make sure I have that in my car so I'm ready for any camping in my car. Or I should go one up and actually do official camping or legit or however you want to call it.
Go get a tent or like a covered cot or something and do some camping.
Yeah, exactly. I've slept. Nice. Cots are good. They're above ground, so that's a plus.
Cots are amazing, and they have cots nowadays that they pack down super small, like smaller than a briefcase almost. And you just kind of pop them out, and then they have some that are covered now. So it has like a one-person tent that can go on top of your cot built into it. So you just get in and lay down on your cot off the ground. You usually put some kind of like foam mattress pad or something down, and you have all your blankets and sleeping bags, whatever, inside. And then you're fully covered by an actual tent, like a 3-season tent. And it's awesome.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, and then it's pretty compact or like portable. You can take it wherever, right?
Yeah, very portable. Yeah. It's amazing the different technologies that have come around just in the past like 5 years on portability of camping equipment. So it's kind of cool to see that's where the overlanding scene comes around, because overlanders, they're really just like trying to go somewhere for anywhere from one night to a week at a time and live out of their car essentially. So they have to be able to pack everything in really tight, very small, minimal space essentially, be able to play Tetris with all their gear. So it's kind of been really cool to see how the camping and outdoors segments of the industry are coming forward and coming along with the different technological changes of just how to run and pack a camp stove. Like, how many different ways can you pack a camp stove to make it portable and more portable than the last guy, kind of thing. So
yeah, definitely lots of technological improvements. I like too, Tyler, that you mentioned like your podcast. People can listen, like the campfire discussion. People can listen to it. You tie it. It's like an omni channel basically. You get to listen to it via at work or wherever, just audio, and then you take that. You want your listeners to take that off road basically, or wherever their travels are. When you go on different, like I guess camping or off roading, do you go? Do you try to go just like day trips? Is that more easier to do, or like the ones that are like longer than a day? Does it take more planning, or do you plan that far ahead, of, like more out in the open, and be like, oh, I have a couple days off. I'm gonna do this.
I'll usually do day trips pretty spur of the moment. But overnight trips, just especially like during the summer when it's nice to go on overnight trips, my schedule gets so busy. As we know with the tennis season during the summer, it gets crazy out here in Northern California, especially, let alone the rest of the country. Yeah. But so when it comes to summer, if I want to do an overnight camping or off-roading trip or backpacking trip, whatever it is, I literally have to plan those like 4 to 5 months in advance.
Wow.
So I don't get too many overnight trips during the summer, but I try and get out once. I would say I get out average of once every month and a half, maybe 2 months during the summer. So once or twice during the summer.
Is there a peak, is there a peak season too, like a perfect weather that you should try to go in the most, or people go the most often by you, like NorCal?
Yeah, definitely. So there's two different seasons for off-roading. There's summer and winter. And the summer season is probably the more busy of the two because people can go on overnight trips a lot easier. You don't need to pack 4-season tents and 4-season camping equipment. And so summer is definitely a lot more busy, especially on the weekends. It's just, you try and go on any of the off-roading trails up here on the weekends and you're going to see 30, 40, 50 other rigs out on the trails. The winter time, though, is my favorite season because I love snow and I love snow wheeling. And I've talked to a few people from Chicago that are like, oh, we drive through snow every year. And I'm like, no. You guys don't drive through the snow like I drive through the snow. I literally try and get to the point where, the snow is deeper than my vehicle is tall. And my Forerunner is 7 feet tall, probably. And I'll go driving through that type of snow. So it's fun. It's also a very different type of snow than what you guys get in Chicago. The snow in Chicago tends to be very cold, very dry, very fluffy snow. Whereas the snow we get here in the Sierras in California, it's like cement. It's kind of like just wet cement. And once it falls, it sticks together and is just kind of grimy and can be hard to get traction in, but you're not just going to like fluff it all out of the way as you're driving through it either. So, yeah, it's fun. My favorite season is definitely snow season, but I enjoy the rocks as well. Driving over as big of rocks as I can find. So,
yeah, that was another question I was going to ask. With the is there any problems with the weather? Like if there's too much snow or any like crazy like heat concerns or?
Not too many heat concerns because when it's hot down low in especially like the Sacramento area where I live, you get 4 degrees cooler for every 1,000 feet you go up in elevation. So once I'm up around 7,000 to 8,000 feet elevation, it's a good, what would that be, for 32, 35 degrees cooler than what it is down in the valley floor. Mm-hmm. So during the summer, it's nice to get up and out, up into the mountains outside of the heat. Tahoe is fantastic to get up into and go up to Lake Tahoe every once in a while. We have also a number of other lakes to go and escape to on a hot day. But the winter time, you pretty much just kind of go until you can't go anymore, and then you turn around and go home. So that's part of the thing that I love about snow wheeling, is that it's such a challenge. You can be going just fine all day long and then hit a spot and it takes you 4 hours to go 100 feet. And then you just kind of eventually just say, all right, I'm done. I'm going home. So you turn around and go home.
That's crazy. Do you have any recent stories or ones that you can recall of crazy weather conditions?
Yeah. So this year I was up and just kind of doing a day trip, which I had completely planned to be a day trip. I was planning on being home before dinner. And so I'm going up. It's a very popular kind of off-roading spot. And during the winter time in the snow, a lot of people go up there because it's one of the only roads that are left open to off-roaders in the winter time here in California. Okay. And they don't plow it. They don't plow the road. So they just let the snow build up. And it's a place for people to go and play in their off-roading vehicles. And so I went up there just for the day trip, took some buddies up that don't do a whole lot of snow wheeling. So I'm kind of like the experienced guide of this trip. And it was kind of snowing on us off and on throughout the day, very overcast, but nothing too bad. And we get about halfway up this trail, and I'm really into ham radio, which is amateur radio, and it's a really great long-range emergency communications option when you're outside of cell reception. So I have my radios on in my off-roading rig 24/7 if I'm ever in there. So we're going up the trail, and I heard an SOS call come over the radio, and so I'm kind of listening, and this guy is like, hey, is there anybody out there? Can anybody hear me? And I picked it up on one of the frequencies, and whenever I was like, yeah, I can hear you. What's going on? And he says, hey, I'm up here. It's just us, no other vehicles. And it's me, my buddy, and my 11-year-old son. And we're stuck. And we've been trying to get out for about 2 to 3 hours now. And we don't have shovels. We don't have snow clothing. And we really don't want to spend the night out here. So we're getting ready to essentially, we're not calling for search and rescue, but we're getting ready to call for search and rescue because the storm was getting worse. And so I know a bunch of the search and rescue guys up in that area. And I also know a couple of the sheriff up in that area as well. And one of the one of the sheriffs got on the radio and said, hey, this is so-and-so at the sheriff department. We heard this call. Are you guys okay? What do you guys need? And turns out the search and rescue team was already out in the storm answering another call for search and rescue. And so I told my buddy, the sheriff, I was like, hey, Frank, this is Tyler. I'm up on the mountain right now. I know I can get to them. I don't know if I'll be able to get the vehicle out myself, but I know that I can get to them and get them off the mountain safely. And then we can come up and get their vehicle some other time. And he said, hey, if you can do that, that'd be awesome. And we'll just keep tabs on you. And when search and rescue is done with their current call, we'll see if you need them to come up for you guys. I said, okay, cool, no problem. So we get up there, and the storm's getting a little worse and a little worse and a little worse. By the time I got to them, it was blizzarding pretty much, but it wasn't super windy yet, but it was getting to be very close to whiteout conditions. And I get up to them and I'm like, hey guys, how's it going? It's a couple guys that are late 20s, early 30s with an 11-year-old kid. Everybody's wearing not actual tennis shoes, but tennis shoes.
Yeah.
and jeans. And one guy didn't even have a jacket. The other guy had a little sweater hoodie, and the kid had a little sweater hoodie. And I'm like, okay, you guys, they were completely like wet from digging in the snow, trying to get their car out. And so I told them, I said, hey, your car works, your engine's on, go inside, get warm. Last thing I need is for you guys to start getting frostbite while we're trying to figure out how to get you guys off of here. So they went in the car, and I kind of trounced around. I brought my full snowmobile get up with me. So I'm outside like a snowman pretty much in all my snowmobile gear, walking around their vehicle, trying to assess the situation. And I'm like, okay, I think we can winch them out backwards, and then we'll just pull them up the hill backwards. And I had one other buddy with me, and he goes, okay, that sounds good. And so as I'm starting to winch them off of my vehicle, they had a much heavier vehicle than I do. And so I ended up winching myself off the side of the trail.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
And luckily, the snow's coming down so hard that there was a nice pillow of snow to catch me. But I had essentially winched myself off the side of the trail, and I was nose down, sunk in the snow. And so now my buddy's got to try and winch me out. But the problem was that he was now too light to pull me out of the hole, and he was winching himself off of the trail now. And so we're like, okay, stop. We got to figure out another plan. And it's now the wind is starting to kick up. It's about 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night, something like that. There's no light. The only light is our headlights. And we're like, okay, we're going to have to find a big log or a downed tree or something to bury in the snow and tie him off to act as an anchor so he doesn't winch himself off of the trail. Instead, I winched to him. And right at that time, 2 random rigs showed up out of nowhere. And so we strapped off to them. We said, hey, come on, stop here real quick. And they stopped. And we're like, hey, we're going to tie off to you real quick. And they're okay, cool. So we did that. He winched me backwards up out of the hole. And then we winched the other guy up out of the hole. And then we had to back uphill in, 10, 15 foot deep snow.
Wow.
Back uphill, and the whole time, the wind's kicking up. By the time we got to the top of the hill, which is only like a quarter of a mile, but it took us 3.5 hours to do it. It was blowing at like 40 miles an hour. We had icicles hanging from our vehicles, and we couldn't hear each other talking from vehicle to vehicle. We had to communicate by flashing our headlights at each other for go and stop.
Oh my gosh.
So we finally get to the top of the hill, get everybody turned around, and in order to turn everybody around, we had to kind of dig a little turnaround spot with shovels. And the snow was coming down so hard that it was essentially like take 2 steps forward, 1 step backward, right? We'd take 2 scoops of snow out with the shovels, and we go back. There's a full nother scoop there where we were just scooping from the snow coming down. So that was interesting. For a while, I was like, I don't even know if we're going to be able to dig a turnaround spot because of how deep the snow is coming down. It's useless digging. So, but we were able to do it. We got turned around, got off the hill just fine, got back down to safety, quote unquote. I don't know, it's maybe 1 a.m. by the time we got back down and knew that we were safe and in the clear. And I just have some great pictures of my entire headlights iced over. I've got icicles that are 10, 12 inches long hanging off. It was a fun night. I love doing stuff like that. I love doing off-road recoveries, and I have like kind of a hero complex. So I love, swinging in and saving the day kind of thing. And so that was a fun night. It was a very long night, very cold night, but yeah. I had my full snowmobile get up. I had extra food. So, every time I go out off-roading, and this is one of the things we preach on the podcast and the YouTube channel, is that, if you're ever going to go out into the wilderness, go over-prepared because you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Mother Nature will always find a way to kick your ass. And so this was one of those days I went over-prepared, even though I was planning on being home for dinner. And it very well paid off, and I was able to I don't know if I would have necessarily saved their lives. They definitely could have just hunkered down in the car until morning. But from being in jeans and shoveling all day and being super soaked and wet, jeans don't warm up at all when they're wet. That definitely saved them from having a really, really bad night. So
Yeah, you're definitely like super Tyler basically, out
that's
there.
me. That's my new
Yeah,
nickname,
that's
by the way.
you. Yeah, is it? It should.
Yeah.
That's so crazy. Yeah, you're expecting to come back at like 9. You don't get back until 1. It's so good that you
Mm-hmm.
had your ham radio on or able to communicate or people out there. That's
Mm-hmm.
that's great. Saved the day.
Yeah, the ham radio stuff is awesome. That's been a side hobby passion of mine for a while, pretty much ever since I started getting into off-roading. And it's
Mhm.
just one of those things. Even if you're not into off-roading, if you ever go out into the wilderness outside of cell reception, um, having a form of communications to get back in touch with somebody in case you need it is always something that's a nice insurance policy to have. And there's different satellite communication devices out there which work pretty well. But I found, at least here in California, just because Silicon Valley is out here and there's a lot of nerdy, geeky tech people here, ham radio works awesome, and it works awesome in a lot of other places in the country too. So highly recommend, if anybody ever goes outside of cell reception, regularly, to look into ham radio as a communications option.
Yeah, and you use it regularly or used it in the past or
Mm-hmm.
whatnot, and it's reliable too. You can communicate.
Mm-hmm. Very, very reliable. So you can get upwards. It really depends on how good of a repeater you're able to find and hit, but some repeaters can give you a range of upwards of 200 miles. So you can just imagine how many people are potentially within range of 200 miles of you when you're out in the backwoods, thinking you can't talk to anybody. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a pretty big radius. Yeah, I was gonna
Mm-hmm.
ask you, Tyler, like, how'd you become interested in off-roading? Like, something since you were young, or how'd you pick up on it, and now you're like an expert.
I picked up on it when I was young. It was my dad. My dad definitely piqued my interest, and my dad, great guy, awesome guy, but he's very much like me. I also picked up his habit of being a workaholic. And so my memories of when I was younger, of my dad when I was younger, are all off-roading and camping memories, because he was a workaholic. So during the week, he was off to work before I woke up as a kid, and he would come back home after I was already in bed past my curfew kind of thing. So I don't have a whole lot of memories of my dad at home, but the ones I do have of when I was young is definitely off-roading. And so it's kind of a nostalgic thing. It's something I've been around for a long time. And once I, got a big boy job out of college, it was definitely one of the first hobbies I started picking up and playing around with. So
It's it's a good hobby to have. It's good, like, work-life balance. So you have something to do outside of your regular like day job, and it's like something that you're passionate about too, or one of your multiple passions, I guess. Other questions? Yeah. Other questions?
I have quite a few passions of stuff I like to spend my time on, and I'm one of those people that, like, I can't sit still. You're another one of those people that just never sits still, and I'm always amazed at how many things you can get done in a day, and I'm always like, I bet you I need to get just as much done as Kelly's getting done today.
Yeah, yeah. I like to stay active. Like to do fun stuff and have a good time. And as you can tell, this podcast is pretty entertaining, and it's definitely a passion of mine now. So, yeah. Other questions about your podcast? I'm just super curious and love to learn, and I think our listeners would love to hear too. You and your co-host Jimmy Jett. So how'd you get? Were you guys like friends back then, or how'd you
that's the funny part. No, Jimmy and I have only really known each other for about a year and a half now, maybe 2 years, or I think we might be coming up on 2 years. But we got introduced through a mutual friend. His name is Brennan, and he runs a Toyota 4Runner website. It's probably the most trafficked website on the internet. And, he does SEO and blogging for a living, essentially, for 4Runners. He has a couple of other projects he does, but, me being a 4Runner guy, and our paths crossed, and we live in the same area in Northern California. So we went on a couple wheeling trips together and immediately hit it off, just because we're both kind of entrepreneuristic and kind of have that mindset of, business oriented mindsets kind of stuff. And so he was having a lot of the stuff installed on his vehicles for the website by Jimmy. And so Jimmy would then record all the installs on video, and Jimmy runs a YouTube channel called Snail Trail 4x4 that does a lot of how to install videos for vehicles. And so immediately, Jimmy and I, because I love tinkering on things, Jimmy and I then hit it off, and it just kind of went from there. And every time Jimmy and I got together to work on a vehicle, we just started talking about off-roading and talking about vehicles and talking about this and talking about that. And then right around that same time, I met the guys that we were doing our old podcast with, and they were kind of in a spot where one of them had a kid, the other one moved out to Minnesota. And so they were having this void where their podcast was starting to miss episodes on a weekly basis. And so I approached him and I said, "Hey, Jimmy and I love talking about off-roading. Let us come on, fill the void on your podcast until you guys can figure stuff out." And that's kind of how it began, and has definitely turned into the black hole of Snail Trail 4x4, what we are today now. So we have the podcast, the YouTube side of things, and there's, we just past 9,000 subscribers on YouTube. We have roughly 10,000 downloads a month on the podcast. And then we go that route. And then we also have our own daily lives. He has his day job. I have my day job. And then, so that's kind of my co-host, Jimmy Jett, and how we met. And it's a good time. So
yeah, that's cool. That's really cool. Yeah, you're I was listening to your last episode. You're on track to hit 10,000 subscribers on YouTube for December, your 50th episode.
Oh yeah.
Over 200 videos for YouTube for Jimmy. You're hitting it up. You're killing it on Instagram, Tyler. Lots of good stuff down the road. You should have some kind of episode or something to celebrate.
We're definitely the 50th episode is going to be a big one, because there's a lot of big kind of milestones happening that you were mentioning there in December. So we're going to do a big listener meetup for the podcast here in Northern California, probably at a brewery in Sacramento somewhere. We're going to do that. We're going to have a huge giveaway. We're going to do multiple items, and we're hoping to get it to be in the $5,000 range. So that's going to be a lot of fun. That's going to be a huge thing. And we're going to be marketing that and spreading it out all over YouTube, social media, podcasting, all over the place throughout all the off-roading communities in Northern California. We've got listeners from across the United States, across the globe, really across the world. I was talking to a guy from Great Britain today about his vehicle. That was pretty cool. So it's a really cool thing. December should be a big month. It's going to be some really neat stuff and things going on with the podcast and the channel, I should say, the Snail Trail 4x4 channel here in December. So
yeah, so listeners out there that are Daily Grinders or Snail Trail 4x4 listeners, you're hearing a preview of what's awesome to come.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I got lucky.
A little teaser of what's to come.
Little teaser of what's to come. I get the lucky enough chance to have Tyler on the Daily Grind. So, yeah, this is awesome. So maybe let's let's switch trails here.
Okay.
Another sport. So Tyler and I, how we met, tennis.
Of course.
It's tennis.
Another freaking grind.
Another grind. Yeah, so tennis. I don't know if you're following what's the latest on the ATP, on the Pro Tour, WTA, etc. I saw latest in the news, Roger Federer, he just confirmed he's going to play at Roland Garros in 2020. And then also he had some interview, I forgot with what reporter, but he's saying he's confirming that he'll play there, and then he's not going to play a lot before that. He didn't mention the Australian Open, but I assume he would play that since it's a Grand Slam. But he just mentioned like French, Holly, Wimbledon, the Olympics, Cincinnati, and then the U.S. Open, basically. So,
can you think of how freaking crazy that is? Where, you know, because the Olympics are done every 4 years, right? The summers.
Mm-hmm.
And, 4 years ago, or I guess 3 years ago, we were looking at, it was in Rio. Was it Rio de Janeiro?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And we're looking at Federer in Rio as like, he's lucky to make it to the 2016 Olympics. There's no way in hell he's going to make it to 2020. And now we're looking at next year, 2020, and it's just like, holy crap! Okay, this is pretty freaking awesome. So, I'm a huge Federer fan. There's a couple other players I'm a decent fan of. I used to work in a tennis shop. It was kind of like my past life before working with Wilson here. Mm-hmm. And working in the tennis shop was great because we always had tennis on the TVs in the shop, right? So I always knew everything that was going on with the ATP and the WTA. And now that I'm working for a manufacturer, I know like nothing that is going on with the ATP and the WTA because I don't have TV. Mm-hmm. And I'm usually, when I'm sitting down writing, doing my emails and my work in the morning and stuff, I'm usually editing podcasts at the same time and multitasking that way. So I never have sports on anymore. And I've fallen so far behind on sports. I'm like, I'm a terrible Wilson employee for not following tennis as well as I should be.
No, you're great. You're doing great. No, you're out in the field, so you're driving places. You're always on the go, so it's tough. Mm-hmm. Me on the other hand, I'm in the office, so I do have the luxury of a ESPN on or the tennis channel on in the background. Mm-hmm. But yeah.
See, my goal is to get a Tesla in 2020. So that I can have the Tesla drive me around so I can watch the tennis matches on the infotainment center while it's driving me around to all of my events during the summers and throughout the year. So
I like that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right? I think it would work fantastic. I just need to talk some other people into it.
Yeah, you might talk me. One of my goals is to get upgrade. I drive a Toyota Prius, so go Toyota.
Woo, Toyota.
Yeah, Prius. So I'm a big supporter of the hybrid or electric cars. But I definitely, this is not going to be my last car. My upgrade, I'm hoping to go Tesla or I'm trying to do, my goal is Porsche under 30. So before I turn 30, get a Porsche. So hopefully if all goes well, if I'm very good at my job and what I do and have a decent, follow my budget or whatnot, dreams can come true.
Absolutely. You're going to go for the 918 Spider, or are you going for a Panamera GTS?
I don't know yet. I feel like I don't know. I walk by on my way home from work every day. There's actually a Porsche dealership in the city of Chicago, so that's just such a motivation. And
how many times do you stop in and go test driving vehicles?
I have not yet. So I moved.
What?
I know. I have not recently. I moved to my current apartment in middle of May, and then it's October now. So, but I've been in and out a lot, and they close super early too.
Oh, that's dumb.
Yeah, they close at like 6:30 or 7 during the week, and then Saturday they're not open on Sundays, so it leaves me down to Saturday, and then
Yeah.
as you and I both know, our weekends are usually pretty busy. So,
Yes, they are, and apparently you don't even get home until 9:30 at night. So during the weekdays.
That's during the week. Sorry, I already missed. They're already closed. Uh, but maybe this winter, December could be a game changer. So I got I got to
Nice.
build it in my schedule. You know, gotta set some time for it.
Well, well, if it's any help, I'm voting for you as the next president. So that's whether you like it or not. That's happening. I'm voting. So hopefully that'll help you towards the Porsche.
Yeah, that that could. I think that could. I think the presidents get decent salary. I was gonna say, I was like, make sure to put down the right Kelly Johnson on the ballot because
Oh yeah, true.
there's like thousands of Kelly Johnsons out there. So I don't know.
Kelly Johnson, Chicago.
Place of residence, Chicago, Illinois.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah, that'd be tricky. But yeah, I've been looking online and stuff, and I've ridden in a few as a passenger, or a backseat driver basically, but I haven't driven one recently. But I think in the next couple of years, I think there's gonna be a lot of technological enhancements because with the different auto manufacturers, different policies on improving it or updates. Even my Prius, like I got it in January 2016, but it's a 2015 model. I basically got like the last one in their inventory in January, so I got a pretty good deal on it. And it was the same like miles per gallon as the 2016 model, but like the one I have now versus like the 2019, like totally different interior and exterior. So so I feel like
it's crazy to see. You know, we were talking about technological advances in the sporting industry, but it's watching the automotive industry.
Oh yeah,
take leaps, and we've advanced automotive industry more in the last 4 to 5 years than we have in the past 30 years. Kind of like what we did with tennis rackets this year with Wilson. So it's just crazy to see how technology is just moving everything forward so freaking quickly. I mean, you're looking at like the new Subaru Crosstrek, the 2019 Crosstrek, gets like 45 miles a gallon, something like that. It's crazy. It's ridiculous. And it's a full gas engine. It's not even a hybrid. And so you're getting, you know, we're seeing vehicles that are going to be approaching close to 100 miles a gallon here in the next 2 to 3 years. I have a good buddy that works, let's just say he works very closely with automotive manufacturers about California state engine regulations and motor regulations. And he said some of the engines that are on the books in the pipeline for vehicles in the next 2 to 3 years are just insane, what they're able to accomplish. So it's really cool to see that moving forward. And all the, you know, of course, all the infotainment centers like Tesla has put in and started the trend of in their cars. And now everybody's starting to copy infotainment centers. I'm very close here to Silicon Valley, and I've talked with a few people that are working on the driverless car projects, and from Google and other startup companies here, and they're saying that all the technology is there to do driverless cars. It's just the liability issue of who's at fault if the car gets in an accident. That's the only thing that's holding us up from having driverless cars right now. So
yeah, no, yeah,
it's crazy.
Tons of liability. Yeah, even on I was just out, I would say not in your neck of the woods, a little bit more north, in Seattle. I did a Seattle Portland trip a few weeks ago, and my buddy Anurag that works at Microsoft, he did like a campus tour for me, and they basically have a Microsoft Uber, so they have these where you can just order for one of the cars to pick you up from whatever building, and then commute you to the other building or to your house. But he said some of them, it's so crazy. Some of them actually, the Uber it's a self-driving one. So you could just get picked up and it'll just drive you home or to the whatever building number. They have like over 100 buildings on their campus. It's insane. But like
awesome.
It's so awesome. It's ridiculous though. It's like a taxi. So I feel like I think the first, like, what they're trying to do is with the driverless cars is doing more of a taxi or Uber service before long distance
Mm-hmm.
ones, because long distance is obviously more liable to different
Mm-hmm.
external factors that could happen, or you run out of gas, or blah blah blah, or like anything possible. Like there's so many
Yeah.
what ifs scenarios. I would say auto insurance companies are like, oh my gosh, like gonna have like a heart attack
Yeah.
or something.
Oh,
Um,
100%. I mean, Tesla is coming out with essentially a big rig, right? So,
mhm,
so much of this country's uh, economy relies and depends on 18 wheelers to move stuff around the country. It's still, I mean, if you think about it in terms of, so much of what we do nowadays is data driven, right? And there was a company who specialized in taking these super, super high resolution pictures of the universe. And they had terabytes upon terabytes upon terabytes, millions of terabytes worth of data of these high resolution pictures of galaxies and stars and of the stuff around the universe. And they found that the quickest way to get these servers and this data from one side of the country to the other was on trucks, of all things. There was no electronic transfers of them, no using the internet for it. So trucking is a massive part of our economy, and Tesla has created a fully electric 18 wheeler. And those things, I mean, once those are automated to drive,
mhm,
it's just going to be such a huge infrastructural boom to the economy in this country, being able to have things constantly on the move
mhm.
at any given time of the day for any given reason. So it's happening, and it's pretty cool to be living through this era of commerce right
Yeah.
now. So
hmm Yeah, I agree. And like, yeah, that's just the auto manufacturers. But I mean, like, yeah, you use a car, truck, wherever mode of
mm-hmm,
transportation, and that like overlaps with other industries, even us, like how
mm-hmm,
you ship out tennis rackets or transport tennis balls, et cetera, et cetera.
mm-hmm.
So definitely lots to come in the years. So I'm pumped up to get my new car down the road. I'm pumped up what's to come.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah,
Yeah.
I think I could possibly get a Porsche quicker if I practiced more tennis or became a pro player. The Porsche, the tennis Grand Prix tournaments, those big prize money ones that what's her
Mm-hmm,
like Kerber wins on the women's
mm-hmm.
side. Like, man, if I was playing tennis and I was decent at it, I could have a run at actually just winning a car instead of just buying a car or being
Right. I
sponsored by
mean,
one.
that's all you got to do. You just got to make it. It's either Madrid or Monte Carlo. Those two tournaments, I think, kind of trade places with the men and women each year.
hmm
But they do the Porsche for the winner for on
Oh
the
man.
WTA side of things each year, and I'm like, yeah, all you got to do is win that. Come on, Kelly, you got it.
I got this. Just a little just practice. I gotta start practicing. Drop everything and just start playing tennis every day.
There you go.
Yeah,
That's a spirit.
yeah. Gotta balance things out. I gotta pick and choose what I wanna focus on or what I can fit in my schedule.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I'd rather just watch them. I feel like I'm been watching. Or if they need a coach, I'm content with being in the coach's booth, or the coach's box.
I make a great cheerleader. If any tennis pros out there are looking for someone to sit in their box and cheer them on,
hmm
across the world, I'm totally down for that job.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, me too. I need like a running coach or like cross training one. I'm pretty good in the gym, so
oh,
you know,
nice.
yeah. They
I
need
have
somebody.
not been into a gym in a very long time.
All right, yeah, I guess I'd say more on the running side. I'm not too good with the weightlifting, but yeah, get the warm ups down, the jump rope and the high knees and
Mhm.
whatnot. I'm pretty good. Got that down. Yeah.
Nice. I can lead a mean high knee workout. I'll tell you that.
Going back into tennis. So yeah, the Olympics
Mhm.
Olympics Tokyo. That's gonna be big stuff. Just looking back on the 2016 Olympics, who all got gold, silver, and bronze. So on the men's side, Murray won gold, Del Potro was silver, and then Kei Nishikori was actually brown for singles. And then Nadal won it with Mark Lopez for gold. It'll be interesting on the women's side because Serena was she didn't place in the 2016
That's
Olympics.
right.
Yeah. So I remember watching. I actually wasn't super focused on. I mean, like I watched both men's and women's, but I wasn't super tuning into the women's singles because I think Serena was out. But like I remember the mixed doubles 2016. Remember the final was between the two U.S. teams, Bethany Maxens and Jack Sock, and then against Venus Williams and Raji Ram. Um,
Mm-hmm.
the Sock and Maxens won, so I'm curious to see what the combos will be for the 2020 for the U.S. actually.
That would be really interesting to see. I like Jack Sock's chances if he plays doubles, no matter where he goes, who he partners with. He just has his game is very, very similar to Nadal's, except he's a righty, and he just hits the snot out of the ball with so many RPMs that it's hard to track and react to when you're at the net in doubles. So he just eats people up in doubles. So all you have to do is have another person with him that can cover the net and knows when to take control at the net. And I like their chances a lot. It's a bummer to see Bethany Maddox Sands, what she went through.
Mm-hmm.
Was it last year, the year before with her knee? Because she's another one. I love her fighting spirit. I love to see her playing on the court. I love the energy and just that pure fire that she brings to the matches every single time she gets on court. I just love seeing that from people. And so it'll be interesting to see if she's had enough rehabilitation with her knee to see if she can make a solid run and get back to winning gold again. So
yeah, I think that was last year that she had that crazy injury. Or no.
yeah,
Actually, 2 years ago. You're right. 2 years ago, and
it was
then
2 years
last
ago.
year
Okay.
was like, I would say last year, right before the U.S. Open, that was like her comeback basically. So she played mixed with Jamie Murray. But yeah, the first time ever I went to the U.S. Open tennis tournament, I saw her on the Arthur Ashe against Serena, and that was singles. That was 2015. And
Wow.
they went to 3 sets. I thought she almost was gonna beat Serena that day. It was
Mm-hmm.
crazy. I think Serena lost in the semis that Open, but yeah, like Bethany Maxson, you can tell her like her fierce energy on the court. I mean, she always dyes her hair a different color, but I mean that's her own personality.
I love her personality. I love the person
Yeah.
you said it perfectly. It's fearlessness, right?
Mm-hmm.
She is the type of player where if she goes up against somebody and the odds are completely stacked against her, she rises to the occasion. And I love watching and personalities on court, off court, in everyday life of people that rise to the occasion. So I really like seeing that out of people.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, not just tennis too, but other sports as well. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's cool and it
Mm-hmm.
adds more of the excitement in the game and just like the atmosphere too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so hopefully, I think she's back to full. Or I'm assuming she's just training right now, but I assume she's gonna play mixed doubles because she's really a strong contender for the
Yeah.
USA. Yeah, Jack Sock, he's like solid doubles player. I know he tries to get in his group for singles matches, but for him, like I think I've said this on another podcast episode, but I think he should just focus on like doubles. I know it's not as much money, but I mean they still make a ton of money, but I
Yeah.
think that's what he's good at or what he should focus on.
I mean, yeah, he's a good singles player. He just doesn't have the tenacity to play singles. And he doesn't have the backhand to play singles either. Sorry, Jack, but I mean, he's probably got better backhand than me for sure, but still, it's like his money is in that forehand and his serve, he can just blast people off the court all day long in doubles. So put him with a good doubles player like one of the Bryan brothers, and they'll have no problem, I think, winning or at least getting to the finals. So
Yeah, I agree. Yes, I'm excited for that. I know the race to London is basically from like now until next couple weeks, basically till the end of the year.
yeah,
There's like one or two
uh-huh.
more tournaments out there. I'm just kind of loosely following it. I'm not super watching all the matches or tournaments, just looking at some of the scores.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Nadal's probably gonna claim the number one spot. He's pretty far ahead of everyone else right now.
He's played really, really well this year. He's been playing consistent. He's been playing a good game. He's been playing a smart game. He's playing, back to, I don't want to say his old self because he's playing a little more aggressive than he usually does. I would say he's back to kind of where he was. I want to say it was 2011, 2010, 2011 US Open. He just played phenomenally. He picked up everything. He picked up his game. He hit the snot out of the ball, played a lot more aggressive, which is cool to see out of him because he's such a grinder. I think of him like a brute force hacking program where he just brute force hacks his way through a match and to beat his opponents kind of thing. And to see him play more of aggressive play styles is really cool to watch. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's definitely an aggressive player. Does not hold back, and he does train.
mm-hmm,
He does train a lot off the court or outside of
mm-hmm.
tournaments. What are your thoughts, Tyler, on him? Him just claiming his 19th Grand Slam now. Is he a
I
threat to
think
the
I think
GOAT?
it's pretty good. I think barring any big physical blowouts like blowing a knee or a shoulder or something, I think that he's got at least two, maybe three more Roland Garroses in him. In terms of him winning another tournament other than clay, like a Grand Slam,
Mm-hmm.
I don't put a whole lot of credence to that. I think as long as he stays in the shape that he's in, he's got another 2 to 3 Roland Garroses under his belt. So
What do you think about like Novak Djokovic? Novak Djokovic. Actually, him and Nadal are actually like neck and neck. I'm just looking at
mm-hmm.
the points right now. I
Oh
thought
wow.
I thought Nadal was farther up. I guess he's number two. Like Djokovic is 9,545 and Nadal is 9,225. So
Uh-huh.
Federer then it drops down. Federer's 6,950, then Medvedev, and then yeah, it significantly drops after that. So it's pretty much down to those two, I think.
Mm-hmm. I like Djokovic's chances a lot better, especially indoors, indoor carpet kind of stuff. He just has so much more of an all around more, I don't want to say consistent game, but his game is so much more biomechanically sound. So he's going to be able to play longer matches and not waste as much energy compared to Nadal's play style. And so I think and on indoor carpeting, the ball just doesn't react as much to different spins and everything. So the ball isn't going to be jumping up and throwing Joker off or anything. He's going to be able to control Nadal's ball indoor, I think, fairly easily. So I don't know. I like Djokovic's chances to finish out the year number one over Nadal's just based on looking at the tournaments that are still have here for the end of the year.
Mm-hmm. And then, what are your thoughts on like those next gen players or up and coming ones? So like Medvedev, Dominic Thiem, Zverev, Tsitsipas.
Mm-hmm.
List could go on basically.
That's a good question. I mean, all of them have such phenomenal games, right? They all have they all have their own little special, unique characteristic in the way they play, and their play styles, the way their mechanics work. They're all very sound mechanically. Where you see the differences is all in their heads, right?
Mm-hmm.
So And that's like for like the most of the top 100 players. A lot of them have very sound mechanics, and it's all just about their mental game and how mentally tough and that fearlessness they have in them, how much of that they have for a whole match kind of thing. If they can hold it out over 4, 5, 6 hour matches. I don't know. I really, really like Tsitsipas's tenacity and that fearlessness he brings to the table, that fervor, that energy he has. But at the same time, personalities with that type of energy tend to experience very, very high highs and very low lows. So it's almost like a roller coaster, right? You need to be a little bit more evened out or be able to hold that tenacity higher for longer periods of time before you come down. Whereas somebody like Zverev or Thiem, very strong games, but they're much more level-headed. You don't see their emotions change too much throughout a match. But the problem with that is they don't hit that high intense period of focus when they really need to in matches. So like that's one of the things I love watching about Djokovic and Serena is when you watching them play, you can see that switch, that flip in their heads when they get this look on their face of extreme focus, and you know they're not going to lose that match anymore. And I don't think that any of the next generation players kind of have that flip, that switch, that extreme amount of intense focus quite yet to be number one. But I think they're getting there for sure. So
yeah, I think that's something that kind of has to grow over time, or they have to have some, I would say, significant wins. Maybe not at the Grand Slam level, but at the I wouldn't even say like a smaller tournament, but like a Miami Open or Indian Wells or one of those, Cincinnati, in regards to they can beat top players, but at that size of a tournament, so it kind of gains somewhat of confidence. And then hopefully that switch turns on, or they can build off of a big win or wins.
Yep, I don't know enough about the mental science behind sports, so sports science and mental toughness kind of stuff. There's a couple of really cool podcasts out there. There's one, I forget the name of the podcast, but they did this really cool episode about where science and technology is taking us for mental training for sports and athletes, professional athletes in particular. And that was fascinating. God, I'll see if I can find it and then shoot you a text. You can include it in your show notes or something. But it's just, I don't know what it takes to get on that mental level. I just know that I can tell when athletes are there, and I just don't see it out of any of the next generation players yet. So,
yeah, for sure. Podcast wise, there's a couple other resources out there for tennis players, listeners are looking to more on the game, or ones that I had in the show earlier. Chris Clark, he teaches tennis or does private. He's a high level performance tennis coach. So he shared some mental aspects, some tips and tricks of our previous episodes, but maybe let's transition our pro talk into more of our us as just the rec player, or league player, or however you want to call us, tennis enthusiasts.
Okay. Yeah.
How can we I just taught USTA Chicago had social tennis, 2 different sessions. I was just an instructor leading a couple different drills. I was probably teaching players there's a more intermediate and an intermediate 2, but we were just doing drills, nothing very, not much as, more just getting the cardio in and more hitting, not as much teaching the different strokes. How can players, I guess, find that switch in them, or do you have, Tyler, any advice or tips and tricks, whether it's just playing a pickup league match or just hitting with someone, how to get that groove, or from your own personal
that's
experience?
Hard. That's such a hard question, because tennis is, it's like golf. It's such a brutal sport on the players. It's such a it's not a sadistic, so it's a masochistic sport. Like you're always in your own head. You're always, if you're losing, it's always our fault, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're always beating ourselves up. And I used to coach, be more of a hitting partner than a coach. I tried to stay away from quote unquote coaching, but I would be a hitting partner and help with playing strategy for high level juniors in the Northern California area for a while, for a couple of years there. And the number one thing that I noticed time and time and time and time again is that smart people typically play tennis because it's just such a thinking chess game, right? But the problem is that smart people overthink tennis and we get in our own heads and we double think and overthink situations or try and overanalyze situations. The best tip of advice I can come up with is to shut your brain off. You have to be able to shut your brain off and react instinctively rather than trying to think your way and outthink your opponent, out strategize your opponent or anything like that. You kind of have to react instinctively in order to get to that point where you're reacting instinctively. You have to have a lot of time on the court to be able to know what the best thing is to do in any given situation and in your different patterns of play. What are the winning patterns and being able to recognize those instinctively rather than retroactively, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So lots of play, play regularly, play better opponents, play worse opponents. Playing up is always, quote unquote fun because you get to always kind of better yourself. But if you can't beat the moonballer out there, and you don't have the mental fortitude or the patience to get through that moonballer, then you're always going to have that one style of play that's going to beat you no matter when you play them, every single time you play them.
Mm-hmm.
So play lots of different people, play up, play down, just have a lot of match play and be able to play enough so that you're reacting instinctively rather than trying to think your way through a match, I guess. So
I think that's really good. I think you hit nail on the head in regards to don't overthink certain things or don't have so many complex strategies out there. When I used to coach my college players, like become stronger on your basic shots and kind of work on that. Just dumb it down in regards to if you have so many things on top of your head when I'm hitting shots, I'm going to totally lose my focus and miss something that should be a completely easy shot I can hit in the middle, and like it just throws off my game. Like you beat yourself up. But another thing that you hit on the head too, just like having a variety of matches, regardless if they're stronger than you or weaker, and you have to be able to tailor your game to beat those types of players or different skills, or if they're a lefty or righty, you have to add more spin, if they're stronger on their serve, things of that, or even external factors. So if you're playing on hard court versus clay court, if it's windy out, just if you're playing indoors, just having that mix. And then I would say from a personal standpoint, I don't think I've written down like different opponents, but I try to take a mental note in regards to if I play this style of player, this is what I'm pretty good at winning points, and then building up to winning games and sets, etc. So I think that's probably the most complex thing. I just remember different hard matches I played in the past, or I remember in high school I did that a lot. Just like I played this certain type of girl, and this is how I beat her, so I should use that strategy in beating other players, which is true. That's that's being a smart tennis player. I don't want to waste my energy on trying to figure out new ways to beat someone when I can just beat them my own way, and it doesn't take half that. All right, so daily grinders. This hasn't happened before on our episode, but we've been talking with Tyler for a bit, and our interview has gone super, super long, and we respect our time of our listeners out there in the world. So we'd like to split this exclusive episode into 2 parts with Tyler. So we're just recording this first part. We're going to hit a little pause button, and then we're going to come back to our awesome conversation. So Tyler, in the meantime, shout out to him. Thanks again for coming on our podcast for today. If you want to reach Tyler, Snail Trail 4x4 is on Instagram, so follow him at Snail Trail 4x4. You can reach out to him they have a Facebook and website to listen to their podcast. We'll talk about more about his in the show notes today, and also in our feature part 2 episode. So without further ado, thank you again for tuning into the Daily Grind. My name is Kelly, and have a great day.